Hey, it's your boy Blackwater Mo. Welcome back to Leonida Oranges, where we give you fresh squeezed GTA 6 content semi-regularly. And today I want to do a new series that I'm calling Character Profiles. And the first character that we're going to break down is one who I find to be most interesting, and it's our guy who's on screen. None other than yours truly, Booby Ike. I think Booby is a mysterious character. I think a lot of people play him as a villain. I don't really see him as a villain personally. We'll get more into that later. But Booby is quite the intriguing character. We can start off getting straight into it. All right. So, who is Booby Ike? Because Rockstar's given us quite a few nuggets on who he is, period. First off, Boobie's one of the most interesting characters that they've introduced so far, in my opinion. And I don't think that the name is random either, because if you dig into the history of Miami, you find a real life gangster named Kenneth Booby Williams. And then you'll find another Florida street legend named Isaac Turnpike Ike Hicks. Put it together, Booby Ike, right? I know, crazy. But here's where it actually gets crazy. There's one person who publicly referenced both men. Look at that picture right there. Ricky Rose Ross, right? Now, I don't think Rockstar's not come out and said that he's supposed to look like Rick Ross or anything, but there's a lot of parallels. So just know that. Big dude, big beard, jewelry, Miami, music business, real estate, street background, turned legitimate businessman. Kind of sounds like Rose. Just, my opinion. But who is he as far as what Rockstar let us know? So before we start theorizing, let's talk about what we know, not what we think. Okay? Because Rockstar has given us quite a bit of info about Booby. First and foremost, they call him a local Vice City legend. So just based off of that alone, he's going to be in the Vice City area. That's where he's going to have a lot of influence. I think he'll have influence outside of that, which we'll talk about later, but local Vice City legend. And that's an interesting choice of words because it's not just a businessman. It's not a criminal. It's a legend, right? So according to Rockstar, Boobie's one of the few people who managed to transform his time in the streets into a legitimate business empire, right? And apparently that empire includes real estate, a recording studio, the Jack of Hearts strip club, as well as some other things. I think that Boobie's ability to transform his ill-gotten gains into something legitimate, I think he's going to play a more significant role for Jason and Lucia, given the rumors that we hear about money laundering. Excuse me. But there's one line from Rockstar's description that tells us everything we need to know about Boobie. It says, Boobie's all smiles until it's time to talk business. So in other words, this ain't some lovable retired OG, onk. Whatever Booby did to become that Vice City legend, I don't think those skills disappeared when he started getting into real estate. It's like Liam Neeson. I have a set of skills, right? Booby has a set of skills, right? And then Rockstar gives us even more revealing line from Booby himself where he says, the club money pay for the studio and the drug money pay for it all, right? So once again, I think he's going to play a huge role in showing us how we can take the money from our robberies, from our, stealing, from our heists, and turn them into legitimate businesses, wash that money to make it clean. There's a pretty big asterisk next to legitimate. That's funny. So That's interesting, right? That's what we know about Booby Ike, the rock star character. Uh, let's talk about the real Booby. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Earlier, I alluded to Kenneth Booby Williams, okay? So, Williams became associated with what the authorities and the media called the Booby Boys, a major South Florida drug organization during the 1990s. Federal court records describe Williams and Efrain Casado combining their distribution networks after meeting in prison and eventually operating a large cocaine operation in South Florida. And one of the areas connected to that is Carroll City. If you're familiar with Miami hip hop, that's the name that should already be ringing bells because Carroll City is where we know who grew up. Who is the leader of the Carroll City cartel? Pop them on screen. Ricky Rose, right? That's where Rick Ross grew up in Carroll City. So Rick Ross hasn't exactly hidden his influence that Kenneth Williams had on him. He's talked about him publicly. He's referenced him in his music. He's even featured recordings of Williams speaking to him on the phone from prison on some of his records, right? In an interview, Ross described Williams as somebody from his neighborhood that people looked up to. We had a lot of those people. I know in my neighborhood, we had some people that's sitting down doing time behind bars who we look to as, the OGs. We look to them and the lifestyle that they had and inspired to be that, Shout out to all of those people sitting down who, trying to make a way out of no way. But Ross eventually said this: I grew up seeing this, and those experiences became part of the stories he eventually put into his music. So now he established something important. There was really a legendary Miami street figure called Booby, right? But our GTA character isn't just named Booby Williams. He's named Booby Ike. So, where does that Ike come from? And that takes us right into another Florida street legend, Isaac Turnpike Ike Hicks. And here's where the whole story went from, okay, that's interesting, to hold on, Rockstar. The song appeared on Port of Miami too, and near the end of the record, Ross states, paying tribute to people. Among those he's mentioned is Isaac Hicks and Kenneth Williams, both on the same song. So think about that. Think about what we got here. We got Kenneth Booby Williams and Isaac Turnpike Ike, Booby Ike, Booby Ike, right? All being brought together by Ricky Ross, Ricky Rose, right? Has Rockstar officially said we combined Kenneth Williams and Isaac Hicks to create Booby Ike? Absolutely not. But we know Rockstar combined two things together to make one thing all the time. They literally do it with all of their vehicles and their planes and they fake brands. They're normally conglomerates or mashups of two types of cars or two types of brands. I don't see why they would do anything different here when it comes to the archetype or the outline for one of their characters, right? So I'm not presenting this as confirmed. This is a theory. And honestly, this ain't even my theory exclusively. I believe I got this from Sav. I'll link his channel in the description. He got really high quality videos cooking over there. Shout out to him. So he's the one who inspired it. And I just went and did a little bit more digging. But Rockstar researches the locations, the cultures, and the history behind all of these games obsessively. So there's no way that I feel like this is an accident or a coincidence or a coincidence, right? So you telling me they created a Miami street legend named Booby Ike who gets involved in the music business, and those two names just happen to correspond with two real Florida street figures who both were referenced by one of Miami's biggest rappers? That's quite the coincidence, if I do say so myself. And we haven't even talked about what Booby Ike looks like, right? As you see, he's been on the carousel cycling on screen. Put Booby Ike next to Rick Ross. I'll put Rick Ross on screen here. And tell me that they're not, I won't say identical, but there's definitely some inspiration. The beard, the size, the jewelry, the larger than life personality, the luxury, the Miami boss presentation, right? I actually think that it's saying Booby Ike is GTA's Rick Ross, especially with the influence that music is going to have on this game with Draquan and the real dimes. It has to. That alignment has to. They can't be a coincidence. Um, but I actually think saying Booby Ike is GTA's Rick Ross is too simplistic. I think Rockstar may have done something much more interesting. What if Rockstar represents the template for what Booby became? Think about it. Kenneth Williams and Isaac Hicks provide pieces of street mythology. Rick Ross provides pieces of the modern mogul mythology, right? And Booby Ike becomes Rockstar's fictional combination of those two worlds. A man with legitimate businesses, real estate, nightlife, recording studio, connections to the streets, and now he's trying to build a music empire. That's basically the evolution of the classic Miami boss archetype. The old version of power was, how much territory do you control? Boobie's version of power might be, how many businesses do you control? The streets gave him the capital, the businesses cleaned up the image, and now music gives him the influence. That's much more interesting character than just the funny GTA strip club owner who looks like Rick Ross. In this part of Boobie's Rockstar description, and this is the part of Boobie's Rockstar description that I think people are overlooking. Rockstar tells us that despite Boobie appearing to be primarily interested in himself, the thing that he's most invested in is his partnership with Draquan Priest and Only Raw Records. That's huge. Because Rockstar could have emphasized real estate, they could have emphasized the club, they could have emphasized the criminal operation, but instead they tell us Boobie wants his record label to succeed. Why? That's the question. Maybe because Boobie sees music as the final step in legitimizing his empire. Maybe it's just another way to make money. Or maybe he sees something in Draquan, because Draquan is almost a younger version of the same archetype. Rockstar tells us Draquan was always more of a hustler than a gangster. He sold drugs because he had to, but music was always the goal. Now Draquan has signed the real dimes, and Rockstar says they're trying to get the hit that could put Only Raw Records on the map. So you got this ecosystem developing. Boobie owns the Jack of Hearts. Draquan books the talent in the club. The club exposes him to artists. Draquan signs the real dimes. Boobie finances Only Raw Records. The label needs a hit. That's not random background information. This is Rockstar building an entire Vice City music industry storyline. And I think Jason and Lucia eventually are going to get pulled directly into it. How? I don't know. This is where we get into pure speculation. But look at how Boobie operates. He's connected to the streets. While simultaneously operating legitimate businesses, Jason and Lucia are criminals trying to survive and move up. Eventually, they're going to need people that can offer them more than just robbery, right? They need connections, money laundering, information, safe locations, introductions, jobs, maybe weapons, maybe people that can make problems disappear. Boobie could provide all of that. And Rockstar specifically describing him as a Vice City legend tells me the value isn't simply his money. It's his network. Everybody knows Boobie. Imagine Jason and Lucia doing small jobs for the Jack of Hearts that introduces them to Draquan, and then Draquan introduces them to Boobie, and they handle something for Boobie, and then suddenly they got access to a whole new level of Vice City, right? And maybe beyond, all of Leonida. That's classic GTA progression, right? You don't begin the game working for the most powerful people. You slowly work your way into their circles. And Boobie feels like he's that type of character, right? He may not be the big boss, but he's like that boss that can open doors to other people. I feel like if you start in Vice City and work your way out, or you start in the Keys and then something happens where you got to go out into the country and then work your way back to Vice City. So where Booby could kind of be that big boss, you know? But can we trust him? There's one small detail that I keep coming back to, and it's that line where it's Booby's all smiles until it's time to talk business. Rockstar wants us to know that they do. They want us to know, which immediately makes me suspicious because Booby looks charismatic, right? He looks funny. He looked cool. He looked like the kind of character that, got a lot of love around him. You see him in the club. He looks like he's enjoying himself. You know what I mean? But actually, he could be the opposite. You know what I mean? Like he's that legend who's all smiles until it's time to talk business, right? He might operate to, as long as everybody's making money, everybody good. But as soon as you interfere with his business, now you're going to meet that Vice City legend. And we'll see how that goes. Like I said, that's all speculation. So, is Booby Ike literally based on Rick Ross? I don't think it's that simple. My theory is Rockstar may have built Booby around multiple layers of Miami culture, and Rick Ross is a part of that influence, for sure. As well as Kenneth Booby Williams, as well as Isaac Turnpike Ike. All could provide that inspiration. I'm certain that it was intentional, in my opinion. Because Rockstar, they do research on these areas in these cities for years prior to, right? So they're not just parodying modern Florida. They're doing the whole culture of modern Florida, right? And hip hop is a huge part of that. Ginormous. And that's why I'm starting this new series, GTA 6 Character Files. Because Rockstar gives us these character bios, they give us screenshots, little video clips, but I think there's way more information hidden in these characters than we've actually unpacked to this point. Boobie's just the beginning. We still got Draquan, Real Dimes, Raul, Brian, Cal, and obviously Jason and Lucia. We might dive into Draquan next, as far as he seems like a natural next step to Booby. If you like videos like this, like and subscribe. Do you think Booby was based off of Kenneth Booby Williams and Turnpike Ike, as well as Rick Ross? Let me know in the comments below. Or am I just reaching? I don't know. Like, subscribe, all the things. They all know